So let's just say you give the child a voice and the child says, I just want to go hide,
Mhm.
right? I'm embarrassed. I want to go hide. And then I ask, facilitate, well, if that child needed something from you right now that
Well,
would be beneficial for her or him, what might that be? And so you think, well, what would a child need who's feeling the way that I'm feeling right now with all this regret? And it would probably be something like a hug, some reassurance. It's okay.
mhm.
I love you. I accept you. Everybody makes mistakes. Something along those lines, right?
Yeah, I've done all of
So,
that.
yeah,
Sit with sit with my inner child.
yeah,
Sometimes, a lot of the time, it was just sit with me,
yeah.
and so I'm not so alone.
Welcome to the Let's Be Real podcast, genuine conversations for authentic living. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Lisa Allshafer, empowerment life coach and author.
And I'm Sondra Pariser, health and wellness entrepreneur, truth seeker, and truth speaker.
And today's episode is about leaving regret behind, how to release regret and rediscover joy.
And so this is kind of the name of the game. And as we're inching into a whole new year, we just think that there's so much value in just releasing some of the stuff we don't need to carry with us anymore. And regret is absolutely one of them. So make sure you guys like, subscribe, and share if you feel compelled. We really, really appreciate it. Kind of messes with the algorithms. So let's get cooking, Lisa.
Sounds good. Well, it's just part of the human condition that we experience regret. Everyone's done something in their life that they've regretted at some point in time. And when we hold on to that regret, what it does is it's an energy. And like we talked about in the previous episodes, it's an energy. And as long as you hold on to regret, the probability of you doing more things to regret becomes greater. So, it's a concept that it takes a little bit of integration into understanding. But worry, regret, anger, sadness, guilt, shame, whatever the energy is, if we're living in that in a consistent basis, then what we do is we remanifest it into a new experience, which is why it's important to let go of these lower vibrational emotions because they're not serving us. They're not making us better people. They're not, trying to thinking, that self-punishment. Well, if I punish myself enough, then, I'll be a better person. And that's simply just not true. Now we do need to perhaps do some course correction and rectify some situations. It's not about not taking responsibility for things that maybe, you feel regretful about, but it is about resolving it.
Mhm.
And so, regret can be such a haunting emotion that, it just kind of lays over your past. It can lay over your present. It can really get into what you're manifesting in the future. So it is something that we want to really know how to let go of and what is its purpose.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
I have so many things that are coming to mind right now, and I'm just going to give you an example. So, in my year, my declaration to the universe, my year of healing. So, we had a situation happen, not this past summer, but the summer before, with a contractor in the. Oh gosh, this house. From the moment we moved in, it was just like this never ending perpetual mess until it culminated with the chimney. But anyway, it's just never ending issues and problems with contractors. Um, and so Saturday night, we get invited to one holiday party, and it was so wonderful. And so there was the contractor and his wife, who are lovely, lovely people, and that regret. And I knew it right when it was happening. I'm like, oh, that's interesting that they're at this party. And I'll bet you they didn't know that me and Alan would be there. Otherwise, they probably would have absolutely not come.
Mhm.
Um, but they were there, and I got to give them a hug, and the wife a hug, and Alan the same, and their beautiful baby. And it was like right in that moment, talk about regret. I knew it wasn't for me. I knew it was for them, that there was a healing that would take place. Talk about regret, right? Wish I would have maybe made some different decisions, or maybe I wish I would not have acted a certain way. And so anyway, as we're talking about regret, like it's like there came it was like a healing, and I knew it was for them, because who
Mhm.
wants to walk around, it's like when you should all over it, right? Shoulda, woulda, coulda, you
Mhm.
know, and not do that.
Right.
So anyway, I thought that was what came to me right out of the gate when you
Yeah.
opened with that.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons I love doing this podcast with you because as we go back and forth with each other, it just it organically brings up things for us to share, right? That exemplify what what the subject of the episode is. And what one of my clients mentioned to me, it's she likes it because it's like listening to a conversation between girlfriends, right? And which is
Yeah,
true. It is a
yeah,
conversation between girlfriends, and that's the whole
yeah.
premise of this is genuine conversations. But it is like listening in kind of on that level. So that's pretty cool.
Well, and that's another thing too, is that so I'm nasally. I've been crying. My sister's going into a really radical surgery. Um, no regrets.
Hmm.
Talk about what a, and we'll get into that as the story goes on, but no regrets. And she is amazing, and she's a warrior, and we get to have genuine conversations, deep conversations, so that every day we move forward, there is no more regret.
Hmm. Yeah.
So we'll hold space for her. But anyway, to be here with you, doing a podcast and being vulnerable and talking about how regret can really hold you back from, living more of a peaceful life. Um, it's just there's a lot of pinging going on here. So
Hmm.
anyway, forgive me. I will probably be utilizing my tissues, but
Hmm.
it's better for us, for all of you that are listening, to know, like, life is happening in full swing for everybody. And
Yeah.
so Lisa and I were talking yesterday, and I said, I don't know if I'm going to be in any shape to do this today. And of course, you were like, no worries either way. I totally get it. It's intense. But then I'm like, no, this is why we're doing this in the first place, is so that we could support one another in this big adventure of life as time goes forward. And so hopefully this will help you guys get through your regret, or
Hmm.
whatever it is that is limiting you from living a more peaceful life. So,
Yeah.
okay, enough out of me for now, Lisa.
Okay. Well, thank you for plugging through it. And it's tough. It's tough when we have things going on in our lives, and yet it's so many people have things going on in their lives and they have to kind of push through it, so to speak, to stay functional in their day and to get the things done and all that. And it takes a lot of courage to do that. So good for you.
Now we get to talk about forgiveness and acceptance and
Yeah.
liberation and
Yeah.
all the
So,
things.
yeah. So, what is the liberation process when it comes to regret? And that's exactly part of it is accepting, accepting what has been because you can't change it. And I've said it on previous podcasts, probably will say it on many more, but resistance to what is creates our suffering, right? So that resistance to what is, which is what has happened in the past, is something that will create the suffering. And regret is suffering
Mhm.
because you're mulling over, you're ruminating over things you can't change.
Right.
Right? Now you can do things about what you've done in the past, and we'll talk about that in a second, but accepting that this is what has happened. And if someone has done something to hurt someone else or hurt themselves or missed an opportunity or a decision they've made in the past that they, live in regret about financially, relationally, health wise, whatever it is, it's really coming to a place of acceptance. And when it's an uncomfortable acceptance like regret, it's challenging to do
Mhm.
because, I mean, have you ever been in your mind just replaying it, but replaying it differently? If I only would have said this, or if only would have done that, and all this trying to change it in some way. And then having that going on in your mind and then being stuck there. And it's like, well, no matter how much you run it in your mind, it didn't play out that way as much as you would have liked it to. I used to do, as I say that, I used to do that a lot when I was a lot, I don't do it anymore, But that was a pretty common thing that I would do. Replay it,
Yeah.
replay it, replay it.
Great.
Oh, I should have said this, or I should have said that, or whatever the case might be. And it's like, boy, talk about monkey mind. That's monkey mind stuff, and it doesn't get you anywhere. It has you stuck in your head and just stuck. Period. So,
Yeah, and I think part of both of our stories regret something that absolutely plagued me for a very long time, and uh, I don't have that problem anymore. And
mm,
it's a huge monkey to get off your back
yeah,
because I wish I would have done that, or gosh, I for me mostly it was I wish I wouldn't have done or said X,
yeah,
Y, and Z.
hmm,
And because the outcome would be, I'm just using Alan because he's the easiest one for me to trigger this, like I could have said that differently. I should have said that differently. um, we just had a situation not very long ago where this old Saunders stuff came up. This is just a couple weeks ago, and I called you and we processed it really, really fast. It was way old energy, and I came out of nowhere, and I really hurt his feelings. And I mean, that's not intentional. And it feels bad, right? I regret saying this and acting like that because what a jerk. but catching it and correcting it is also something that along the way, you forgive yourself, ask for forgiveness. That was another thing too. Um, we solved that issue really quickly because mostly I sat down and I said to him, I'm really, really sorry I acted this way. It was old child. I said, "This is the memory. This is where it came from." It was shock. You said something and it shocked me, and I went back into the inner child stuff, right? Which
hmm,
we will always cover because that's part of it. That's where some of
yeah,
this old behavior comes from. Um, but to really the forgiveness is of self, and ask for. And I asked him. I said, "I am so sorry. I really would never have said anything to intentionally hurt you." Um, but that's what happened. so,
hmm,
um, but it moved a whole lot faster than, oh my God, I could go back to 1,000 different circumstances of, wow, I really wish I didn't act this way or that way. And then you live in that feeling of shame. It's like the regret turns into this playing this story over and over. And then you feel like, oh, and it just, the energy just gets more out of control if you
yeah,
don't tap into it and really try to heal it and forgive it, accept it, move on,
yeah.
because that shame is awful.
Yeah, and it can so easily be, regret can so easily be hooked into shame, right?
Mhm.
Not all the time, but a lot of the time it can because of, again, something we've done or whatnot. And forgiveness, again, is acceptance and forgiveness. And even though we've alluded to my 30-day forgiveness walk, which we'll probably do down the line at some point more specifically, but I was putting someone in that I needed to forgive for myself, right? In that forgiveness walk. But I also shared on the forgiveness walk, because I was documenting it, that this can be so beneficial for self forgiveness. And that was the Ho'oponopono prayer that I was doing every day for 30 days. I would listen to that. I'll put all the links in the description about this. But I was listening to that. It was about a 10-minute Ho'oponopono prayer, which is really what it is. It's um, please, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you, I love you. It's those 4 sentences, really. And it's put to music. It's really beautiful. It's really more emotionally provoking, really penetrating, I should say. And in this YouTube video that I found that just says those 4 statements, right? And so when we are practicing forgiveness, we can put ourselves in that space as well. And I would just go for a walk and I would play the Ho'oponopono prayer, and then I would document my thoughts. And it was a super powerful process for me and what I needed. I was kind of at the tail end of forgiveness for someone that I had needed to let go, like completely resolve, and it really helped with that. But even in talking about regret, if you have remnants, if you have either they're fresh or they're old remnants, it doesn't really matter. If you were to be able to do that kind of an exercise, and it doesn't have to be going for a walk, it can be sitting in a chair and just listening. And it just, you can put your own spin on it. I just happen to be going for a walk. And then it can really release some of that regret, guilt, shame, whatever is
Guilt.
all mixed in with
I mean,
that.
when I think of it, yeah, it's guilt. God, and we can really do a number on ourselves. But
Yeah.
yeah, whatever the energy is. So how would you suggest if someone's listening to this and they have a particular regret, um, what would be a really great way for them to process it? Because you're saying sit, walk, do it through forgiveness, like
Yeah.
for people who
Well,
are new to the work and don't have access
mhm,
directly to you.
yeah.
um,
Yeah. Well, I was talking with someone the other day about it was a mom who had a question about her 3-year-old, and I gave her just a quick little thing about how to deal with the emotion that comes up for her, because really that's the thing that's going to impact your child the most is whatever energy you're in, because they feel that. And so it's to really recognize, what is it that regret is bringing up for you as far as how you're dealing with it. Are you punishing yourself? Are you, um, um, what is it that you're trying to do with the energy that you're in?
mhm,
And, do you have a need for things to be different? Right.
mhm,
Well, they're not. So could you let go of your need for things to be different? Because that's not helping. It's actually strengthening the regret. If you have a need to punish yourself, that's not going to benefit you. It's not going to help anybody that isn't involved in whatever situation you're regretting. And it's only going to keep you stuck. So
mhm,
it's going into a place of really allowing yourself to feel whatever it is you're feeling, letting go of whatever the needs are you have hooked into, whatever keeps it around for you, which is really resistance. And just, I feel this way. It's okay to feel
mhm.
this way. I mean, I tap. You don't need to tap, but I tap. And so I determine let me just go through it a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, because I was gonna say, like, and explain the tapping, because there's a reason we tap.
Yeah.
But I think that,
Well,
and
mhm.
go ahead.
Well, there's a whole tapping modality. There's a whole tapping healing process, and that's not what I'm doing. Reason I'm tapping is it's to get you out of here in your head and to
Mhm,
put you in your body. And it helps to do that. It just helps to pull it down into your body, and it's over your heart chakra, right? So, um, but that's really, it's kind of almost like to help your mind kind of get out of its own way. So, let's say, we're feeling regret. So, a big part of releasing energy is to fully feel it. See, the thing is, we're trying to get so far away from our feelings, and that's resistance. We're either
mhm,
projecting it or suppressing it, or, whatever we're doing with it. And all it's doing is it's making it worse. So,
mhm,
in order to release it, you have to fully feel it. I
mhm,
describe it kind of like, like a a prisoner who goes into jail, right? And they leave their things at the wherever the check-in is, right? And so, but when they come, is that how it is? Hold on, I need to rethink how. This has been a long time on me using that example. Maybe I should use a different one. Basically, yeah, I'm gonna abandon that because it's not coming to me really clear, and I don't want to make it any more confusing than it already is. But basically, you have trapped emotions inside you,
Yep.
and so when they're trapped, you need to allow them to come up and out. And the only way they can come up and out is by feeling them. And I know it feels like, well, that seems like it's the opposite. If I allow myself to feel it, I'll feel it even more. And it's like, actually, no. Once you fully feel it with the intention of it moving, right, moving out, it actually dissipates. I've
Mhm,
been doing this process for 17 plus years, and it's just amazing how much people feel lighter and better after going into the feeling and feeling it and allowing it to pass through. Okay, so with all that little bit of explanation
yeah,
there,
perfect.
Sorry about the bad analogy that I can't come up with, but whatever. I'm not gonna regret it. So, anyhow, so it's can so if you're feeling regret, I usually have people close their eyes when they process, right?
Right.
So I feel regret. If I have a need for things to be different, and maybe a need to punish myself, I would just say, I let go of my need to punish myself. I let go of my need for things to be different. And then I would check in actually with my body and to see if there's any tightness or tension in my body. And if there is, maybe it's in my heart, maybe it's in my stomach, wherever it might
For
be.
me, it's always my throat, my
Okay.
communication. Remember, I
Yeah.
would usually get stuck. My feeling would get stuck there. So the throat's another
Yeah.
big one.
Throat's a big one, especially like when we have sadness, because if you think about when you're sad and you're trying not to cry, what happens to your throat? It just seizes up and tightens up. And then as soon as you allow yourself to cry, it releases,
Yep.
right? So,
Yep.
tightness in the body is a form of resistance as well, because you're resisting whatever the feeling is that wants to come up and out, but you're fighting with it on a physical
Yeah.
level with resistance.
Yep.
So, I check my body, see if there's any tightness or tension. And if there is, then I just allow myself to just let it be what it is. I just relax into it as much as possible and just
Or
observe
breathe
it.
into it. For me, like it's
Yep.
breathing, you're relaxing into it. For me, it would be like take a breath
Hmm.
and like feel it.
Yeah.
And it's amazing when I process with you that it moves so fast
Yeah.
when you have an intention. So
Yeah.
for me, I take a breath, but you just relax into it and feel it, and you'll see how quickly it starts to dissipate when
Yeah.
you just decide to feel it
Yeah.
versus the resisting it.
Versus the resisting it. Yeah. And then, then I bring in the tapping over the chest, right? And, you know, declare out loud, I feel regret and it's okay to feel this way. Simple as that. I feel regret and it's okay to feel this way, because what we're doing is we're letting go of the resistance
Mhm.
so that the energy can pass through. Now, when I'm processing, take facilitating somebody through the process, like the eye care approach, I take it to another level of the inner child. So imagine your inner child is standing in front of you feeling regret, right? Feeling the way that you do. And if that child was given a voice and it could say something to you right now, what might he or she say to you? And then you really got to get your mind out of the way for these types of things. And you really want to go with whatever comes first.
Yeah, and just go with whatever like it. This is one of those things like it is more of an intuitive thing. Don't second guess it. Get your mind out of the way and what pops up first. And in this process that you and I are talking about that I did, that I called you and I'm like, oh, I need a process. Um, it was a 5 minute process. Like we got in there and there was a very specific, like what, what's coming to you, what's coming up and it's, it is my little girl. And there was a, inner child. So just don't, um, oh my gosh, how much have we talked to my inner child? You've talked to me so many times. It's amazing. Um, but just go with whatever intuitively comes up because that's always the answer. It's just like when you say, how are you feeling in this moment? Do you have any tightness in your body? Just don't overthink it. Where are you at? And if the answer is no, I'm not tight at all, then that's the answer too.
Yeah.
But it will usually, if you ask the question, the answer will come popping up.
Yeah. Yeah. Where I see some people just struggle with that. They're just too much in their head and they're trying to think of an answer, and now we're already in resistance again. So I'll reroute it usually when that's happening, and it's very flexible. But so let's just say you give the child a voice and the child says, I just want to go hide,
Mhm.
right? I'm embarrassed. I want to go hide. And then I ask, facilitate, well, if that child needed something from you right now
Well,
that would be beneficial for her or him, what might that be? And you think, well, what would a child need who's feeling the way that I'm feeling right now with all this regret? And it would probably be something like a hug, some reassurance. It's okay.
mhm.
I love you. I accept you. Everybody makes mistakes. something along those lines, right?
Yeah. I've done all of
So,
that.
yeah,
Sit with sit with my inner child.
yeah,
Sometimes, a lot of the time, it was just sit with me,
yeah,
and so I'm not so alone.
yeah. And what we're doing in that process is we're learning how to reparent ourselves for ourselves.
Mhm.
Because a lot of people have had pretty harsh parents. And whether you have or you haven't, it's still like how to treat yourself and parent yourself in the most healthy way possible. And when people are hard on themselves and they are punishing themselves and they're doing all these things that are so unkind and mistreating to is mistreatment to themselves, then when you put that inner child in that in front of you, it's like, would you ever do that to a child?
Mhm.
And most people most people would say no. Why not? Because it would hurt the child. Exactly. It'd have a lasting effect on the child too, wouldn't it? Yes, it would. So why are you doing it to yourself? Because it's having a lasting effect on you too,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And then we go into back to the tapping. And then, even though I feel regret, it does not define who I am. I give it permission to pass through me now.
Mhm.
I allow in love and acceptance and trust that I'm always supported. So it's just it's allowing the energy to pass. It's allowing back in the flow of the love and acceptance energy, because a lot of times people will have that shut down. And then trust that even though these things have happened, that within these things that have happened, there's more than likely something for you to be learning from. And
Always.
some, and I mean, how many times have we gotten things easy? That's not the rule. The rule is we get things when things are hard.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And
Okay, I
that's
think thank you. I can't begin to tell y'all how impactful this can be. It's the process in itself. It seems so simple. It is so simple. It's so simple. And it works every time. I've
yeah,
released so much just by even becoming aware of it. And when you're
yeah,
talking about, I mean, regret is something that you all know if you're feeling it right now about
yeah,
anything.
yeah,
And really, whatever, if it's not an energy that's serving you, and regret, again, wrapped up with guilt and shame and shoulda, woulda, coulda, this is a perfect practice for you to see if it works for you. It's
mhm,
never not worked for me.
right,
And for you too, Lisa.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right.
So
So,
thanks for that.
um, moving on to the kind of the next piece of the liberation process, it's really learning how to live in the present. So, in order to live in the present, we have to be really not just letting go of the past, but resolving the past, which is part of
Mhm.
the letting go process. So I have an exercise that I have in my program. It's called Letting Go, Living Now. And I take people from, the things that they're holding on from their past and the things they worry about in the future. And I ask them these specific questions. And the first one is, list an experience that you've been carrying around with you from your past, and how long ago those experiences happened or that experience happened. And what a lot of people are carrying around are things from their childhood or things from 20
Mhm.
years ago or things from, I mean, very rarely is it like a week ago or 6 months ago. It's usually years in the making. And so just to have that kind of realization that, wow, I've been carrying this around for 20 years. This is
Mm.
crazy. Why am I doing this? Right? It is crazy. Why are you, even with the forgiveness walk that I did, I'm like, good Lord, it's been a decade. It's time. Let it go. Whatever's left, it's like, I just want the energy neutralized because it's only
Mhm.
hurting me. And so, it's the realization of how long some people have been carrying stuff around is just an eye opener, because they're really putting it into a form that there is right in front of them, instead of just having it kind of be the background feedback of their life,
Mhm.
the white noise in their life. And then the second question is, describe how one of those experiences is impacting your life today, because oftentimes you're
Mm.
going to find that that thing you're carrying around with you, which regret can be one of those things for sure, it is impacting your life.
Mhm.
And when you can start to put these things together and say, oh my gosh, if I have something that I did, I don't know, way back when, and I see that I kind of recreate that and I'm actually recreating it because
Mm.
this is your life examined, right? Who is it, Aristotle? A life unexamined is not worth living, right?
Mhm.
That's the famous quote. So we're examining our lives from a place of learning and growing from the examination process, right? And then the last question is describe how resolving, making peace with, and letting go of this experience would impact your life today.
Mm.
And so that's where we've talked about, I don't remember which podcast it was, but envisioning where you want to be. And then just think about, oh my gosh, I would feel so much lighter. I would feel so much freer. I
Yeah.
would feel I could move forward. I could let this thing go. Well, that's part of that, look at what it's impacting, how it's impacting you, and how it would impact you to let it go.
And it's always a positive,
Mhm.
letting
Yeah.
things go, forgiveness, of self really is, I mean, it's kind of our
Hmm.
jam, right? So
Yeah.
it's the way we move through this really tricky game of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
And so as we leave the regret behind by resolving it and making peace with
mhm.
it and all that, it's embracing what's ahead, to bring more of that joy in, to bring more of the positive in. So maybe setting new goals, you know, um, where you can even set goals in relation to the regret, right? Whatever that is, take the lesson in and move it into one of your new goals. And then if you perhaps have regret over missed opportunities, then another process could be is putting yourself out there. Quit playing it so safe. Take calculated risks, right? And get out of your
Go
comfort
find your
zone.
own luck.
Yeah.
Go find your own luck. And I
Yeah.
mean, that's like something like just as we talk about it, just embracing the new adventure of you without the regret or the sensation or just getting rid of that and what life looks like.
Hmm.
For me, I did a training on this. You helped me with this a long time ago, years and years ago, about people would look at me and say, "Oh my gosh, she's so lucky. She's so lucky. I'm so lucky." And I'm like, "Oh, I've created every ounce of luck that I have." And I walk through a door and there's, you know, a mystery and an adventure. And so if something is presented to you, right,
Hmm.
that opportunity, that door gets opened, walk through it, see what's in there, get
Yeah.
curious, right? And that's the name of the game of life in my mind. Like I just as I reflect back on this time of my healing journey over the last, really, it's almost, well over a year, 14 months or so. It really started when we made the move, and it'll be 2 years in January. When I say it started, it was like, even having that experience on Saturday night, which was like, whoa, it kind of took me back to the energy of that time. And I'm so not there anymore at all. It's a totally different ballgame. But whatever assistance and reason why that experience happened, really it's for the best and highest good of all involved. And who benefited from it? I think all four of us benefited from it, and then some, right? Because the ripple effect. So yeah, go get lucky, go create some luck. And it's just by being adventurous and taking chances, just like you just said.
Yeah.
Take some adventurous chances,
Yeah.
see what
And
happens.
so many people play it safe. And there's lots of ways in which what that can look like. But it is about stepping out of your comfort zone. That's really where the growth occurs, is out of your comfort zone. So take some of those calculated risks, not careless risks, but
Mhm.
calculated risks. And that's where you can really follow your intuition on some of that stuff, on some of those
Mhm.
risks that you take. So yeah. I think it's important also to look at how far you've come. A lot of people are always looking at how much further they have to go, and that can
Uh,
be daunting. That can be a daunting way of looking at things. Quite honestly, we all have more to go. There's no end point to
as
growth
long as we're
and
breathing.
Yeah, and being here, there just is no, I have attained this, whatever, enlightenment or whatever it is. It's just knowing that there's always further to go. So, but look at how far you've come. And
Mhm.
even with the regret, especially if you've been carrying regret around for a long time, look at the things that you've done that you don't have regret about. Look at your achievements. Look at the things that you have done that you're proud of, that you feel good about. I mean, it's not all one, just big ball of negativity. It's always
Mhm.
going to be a mixture, and it will help to keep your focus also on what it is that you feel good about yourself, and the things that you have done right, so to speak, in your life. So, mhm.
And that's even when we first moved here, January, February, it was freezing cold. And one of the windows that got installed um, shattered when they were installing it. So there was this piece of plywood. Well, okay, when it's freezing cold outside, that
Mhm.
plywood ain't going to keep the heat inside, right? So
Right.
um, it was just a really dark time. And talk about regret. I remember laying in the bed talking to my channeler, Jason, going through a process. I felt I didn't want to meet anybody. I didn't want to assimilate. We had contractors in our home. And the ongoing joke is like, I'd wake up for the first 5 months that we moved here in my pajamas, washing my face, working on construction. I'm like, this is like, no wonder I was in such a dark place. Um, in the regret that I had at that time, thinking about I've been working on myself for my whole life, and here I am, and I am so miserable. And how far I had to go then, that what a heck of a 2 years. And you know what? I look at it now and I am so grateful and so thankful for every obstacle I had to jump through, because now I can sit here today and have these amazing conversations with my sister, and knowing she's going in, and just amazing conversations with people in general. And it's like, it really is like, I am very proud of where I am and how much I've grown. And the fact that you and I are even here is like, I had to go through so much to be able to make sense of all of this. So y'all can do it. If I can do it, y'all can do it. And yeah, and look and say, you know what? There's so much more to go, but now it's just the adventure of life for me, right? Because I've gone in and felt all the things, but I'll continue to feel because that's life. So, and things are going to happen. Like this morning, Alan comes in from the gym, and a dear friend and business partner of ours passed away. And I'm like, and my sister's going into surgery today. Really? Really? Okay, so how do this is it. We're going to go through life, and to feel sadness or, you know, whatever it is, regret. Look at it, feel it, don't ignore it, be part of it. I get to show up on a podcast all nasally and drippy, and and sharing the vulnerable parts of life, and to say, I'm pretty proud of where I'm at today. No more
Well, and
regrets.
I think, everyone has their own internal inner journey and process, and that's, it's gonna uh, we're gonna that's just part of it. We have to, move through all that. But what's important is to have supportive and positive people around you
Yeah.
as you're going through that. Like you say, you've got me, you've got Jason, you've got Alan, you've got, a
Mhm.
lot of friends, but you have your kind of your core group that that you can go to when the times get rough, right?
Yeah.
And not everyone has that. And I think that's important, is that you need to have someone. And you mentioned it at some point in time.
I was just going to say, yeah, yes, this is so important. Keep going.
Yeah. So, if you have the right people in your life that you can call upon to do that, and if you don't, then reach out to somebody who is a professional who can help you with that. And sometimes, even if you do have those supportive people, but they just don't have quite the skill sets to help you through whatever it is you're going through, call somebody. whether
Yeah.
it's someone like, myself, who's a coach, or you're Jason, who, channels is a little different, or a therapist, or whoever it might
Yeah.
be. But the point is, make the phone call and make the investment,
Yep.
because it's could be the best investment. It probably most likely will be the best investment you'll ever make. And it will change.
Yes.
It can change, get somebody good, but it
Yeah.
can change the trajectory of your life.
Yep.
Trust me, it changed the trajectory of my life. It changed your trajectory, and so many other people that I've worked with and know about.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it is a truly a life changing. Um, that's a calculated risk. There you go.
That's a
It's a very
calculated risk. And
calculated
on
risk.
that note too, and we have talked about this and we will continue to talk about it because it really is so important. And if you haven't caught all of our podcasts, I'm going to reiterate what Lisa you're talking about right now, which is the importance of taking care of yourself and how spending that money on you, spend your money on you, um, is the best investment I've ever made. But I'm just going to talk about my sister because she's so fresh in my mind, obviously. So she, I'm on the phone with her yesterday, and she's like, "Hey, have you ever heard of Joe Dispenza?" I'm like, yes. And she says, because she's new to this inner work. She's brand new to the inner work. And I'm like, I feel like I'm looking through the eyes of like this, and she just happens to be my sister, just this expansive, exploratory like journey into healing physically. Obviously, she's got cancer in her body, but it's also the inner journey of you got to heal your traumas. We all do, and we all have them, and how it presents in the body is how it presents in the body. And we've talked about that too. But like, I'm using her as an example because she's, on a limited budget, and she has two kids, um and so, to spend money on yourself, she just picked up a book and started reading it, you know and a book by Joe Dispenza. I Another lady that I was on the phone with earlier today in my business, just talking about business strategies, and um, you know from my experience of 20 plus years in the world in which I work, she just wanted to plug my brain. She's a successful woman in a different organization, or really actually deep in our big organization, but anyway, I said to her, go get the book The Magic. So these are things, if you are, we all need help. I'm just saying we all need help. And if you don't have the funds to like find somebody like a Lisa or a Jason or a therapist, or what have you, go get some books and start reading. The magic is the easiest one for me because it's a practice of gratitude, and that will bring lots of emotions up. When you practice gratitude, you sit in, we talked about this on our Thanksgiving podcast, like
Mhm.
that's some real awesome frequency energy, right?
Yeah.
That you can, bring into your life. So it, there is so much to be said about the amount of money you spend on yourself, even if it's a $15 book,
Yeah.
right?
And I've had a lot of clients who didn't have the funds immediately to work with me, but they made it happen.
Yeah.
They got creative and made it happen. And I've had people who the amount they invested for their coaching came in the exact amount from some unexpected place that came to them. So, and this is, but again, this is the belief
Yeah.
system. The universe really is supporting you
Yep.
if you give it the opportunity to. And in order for you to give it the opportunity to, you got to take those calculated risks.
Yes. That is so, oh my gosh, we need to expand on that a little bit. I think that's on the money. So everything that I've ever done in talking about myself, up until my 30s, I was, my mid 30s, I was, like making $100,000 a year bartending, swinging from chandeliers, and I still found value. Even then, I put myself through massage school. That cost a lot of money. I, but it was worth its weight in spades given what ended up happening to me over time. So then Alan and I start dating. Oh, I don't know if we were dating yet or not. But then Tony Robbins. These seminars are expensive. I went through the whole T. Harv Eker, and gosh, that was back early 2000s. And it cost me $10,000 to go through T. Harv Ekker's expansion seminars. Did it pay me back? In spades, in spades. So very, yeah. You set your intention and you ask God for support and it will come.
Yeah. Well, and it's also recognizing, especially for people who are in business, right? And they want to maybe charge a higher rate or whatnot. Um, Again, depending on the business and a lot of the service-based businesses, especially, and what you can charge. And one of the things that was a really good point that I heard from somewhere, I don't remember exactly where, but if you're not willing to invest in your own growth, then why would you be willing? Why would you expect someone else to? And I've put a fair amount of money myself into um, programs and coaching and seminars. And boy, I got the delivery people come. I don't know if you can hear the doorbells, but lots of things on the front porch when we're done here. Anyway, and I
It's
spent.
from me. It's from me. I told
Oh,
you it was
okay.
coming
Yeah, yeah.
today.
Well, I believe it's here. So, yeah, I spent $20,000 for a coach for marketing in 2018. I spent 12,000 for a coach, more of a business coach, outside before I spent the 20 grand. That's the most money I've ever spent on something like that. But the value, mostly the $20,000 one, not the $12,000 one so much, but that's okay. And it's just, and now I've put more money in just about online programs to gamify them and things like that. So it's like, yeah, but it will come back, and you have to really get into the mindset of investing in yourself. Because if you think about, if someone could come in and take away your regret in 5 minutes, would that be worth $10,000 like you paid, or $5,000 or $3,000 or, whatever, $500? Would you pay that if you could just remove it like that? And most people would probably say yes. But so it can happen. It doesn't happen in 5 minutes, but it can happen. So you have that time, that process in which you need to build that inner foundation of how to let go. It's so you're not just doing about the things you're regretting, you're building a foundation, an internal foundation on how to have a healthy relationship with all of your emotions, which totally puts you ahead of the game in any area of your life.
You think? I mean, there's that could be a podcast in and of itself, but um, I mean, there's so much to this. You're worth it. You're just worth it. We're all worth it. And I know I keep saying this, but and I'll continue to keep saying this. We're just living at the most magnificent time where what took me a lifetime to achieve is taking my sister months. And, she didn't have to spend her lifetime doing the work. She's getting it in one fell swoop, but she's able to get into the heart. Like, it's amazing for me to watch how quickly people can really heal. I do think it's just because of where we're at in the timeline of 2023, almost 2024, and how, it's all it's all starting to move its way through so fast.
Yeah. Well, the people who have been healing, so, it's been 20 years for me, probably more than that, I would say. But, and then, same for you. It's like all this time, it did take longer because there wasn't as much available. I don't think life coaches even existed back then. Uh, so there's been so much change. And there's more and more people taking the initiative and those calculated risks to actually work on themselves more than ever before, which then becomes a collective experience. So what took us 20 years to heal from might take 5 years or 3 years. It just really depends on
Yeah.
how committed you are. That's really one of the biggest things. I was really committed and it still took a long time, right? But they're just, you need to, you know recognize that what's happening collectively, even though it might not look like it, if you turn on the news or anything, but there is more people doing the inner work now than ever before, which then accelerates the process for everyone coming into that place because more and more people are healed. which then
Right.
holds that vibration for other people to ride on until they've done more of their own healing themselves, which just accelerates the process, which is
You
really
know what?
awesome.
And that absolutely. So in what you and I went through was the best that they had at the time
Mhm.
for this type of work, transformational um, shifting in our consciousness. And now, like some of the podcasts I listen to, and by the way, I don't turn the news on because wow, very low frequency. And I continue to pray that the killing of other humans stops fast. That's my prayer. I don't need to see it. I I got it, just careful what you put in. And now, like, I go on YouTube and I listen to, oh my gosh, the most amazing. I'm like, wow, this is out there. It's out there for everybody. And everybody's saying the same thing, which is the inner standing. What does it mean to go inside? Oh, this is an inside game. Oh, I get it. We got to heal our trauma. And when we do that, then the collective consciousness, we together, these are all of our listeners, people listening, you are wanting to know, you know, how do I get there to happiness or peace or, just kind of an inner standing, an understanding of the inner standing is all, but it's all out there because,
Yeah.
we have a podcast and we're teaching people about it, which,
Mhm. Well,
amazing.
and what I love about the podcasts that are available more now than ever, I mean, I mean, people are flooding the podcast industry like we are, and but yet I was watching something, and it's still there's I think like 4 million podcasts or something like that, but in
Wow.
relation to it's not that much to in relation to I guess what's available and growth, room for growth in the podcast industry. But you have these podcasts where a lot of men are talking about their emotions. And
Mm,
I mean, men like Andrew Huberman and Peter Attia and Lex Friedman. And well, I wouldn't say he's much, that masculine like Huberman, right? But you have these men who are not just touching on the subject. They're doing a whole podcast on these subjects
mm.
about emotions and how it affects our physical body and just being a man. And Tim Ferriss is talking about this stuff. He had, Brene Brown on a podcast. And, I mean, these guys, I
Good.
just love it. And then they interview
Good.
each other and all this stuff. And those podcasts can go 2 to 3 hours.
No, yeah. Yeah.
Right? And people are
Yeah.
watching, and Andrew Huberman has just blown up. I
Yeah.
mean, he has
Yeah.
like 5 million subscribers right now, and he is just blown up because he's very real. He's very,
Yeah.
and he
Yeah.
talks about where he came from, which is his own story
Yeah.
is vulnerability is what they're showing. And I'm so glad. I mean, it's always been, I think, easier for women to be more vulnerable and talk about their feelings, clearly. But to have men out there is providing such a service to other men, but also to the younger men that
Oh,
need direction in today's
yeah.
world so badly, to have
Yeah.
positive, healthy role models that are taking the
Speaking
risks
truth.
and being vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah, and it really is like, so for me it's like Jean Nolan and Frank Jacob and um I didn't really think about it that way, but you're right.
Mhm.
Like we need more men talking about shifting and our energy and how it feels and masculinity. And even the lady I was on the phone with that I was talking about the book The Magic to earlier today, she has a pretty large social media following and she's a single mom. So she speaks to single moms, but and she's awesome. She's like a hustler. I love it. She's like, yeah, lately men have been reaching out to me, and I'm like, I think that's great because we're really all human, living the same. It's all the same stuff.
Yeah.
And even Alan, I will say, of all the men, my husband's as masculine gets. Personality all the way through and through. Um, but as he's been healing his wounds and our traumas, uh, this masculine man is now just, oh my gosh, it's night and day, even for men, especially for men, I think. Women, we talk about how we feel. I think it's been a thing. And coming back to the podcasts, and I didn't know anything about that arena, but you and I both got a really loud calling literally in the same weekend. Okay, it's time, let's go. Like, who are we? We're just little piddly little people that really I mean, we're just who we are, right? So, what do we have to say? And like, you could think about it like that, or you could say follow the calling, right? Be courageous. Like, who's going to listen? You and I were both like, we're unattached to the outcome. That's not what really matters. But now, as I sit here today, almost inching into 2024, people like us, people like our listeners, if you have something to offer that will help with the collective consciousness shift into more of a love frequency vibration, get out there and start a YouTube channel, because we need to
Yeah.
flood the internet with this kind of a message. It's like,
Yeah.
instead of all the don't turn that television on, you don't even know what's coming out of that,
Yeah.
right? It needs to happen. So we are affecting, we are making a difference in the human collective consciousness, in the shift into what does it mean to be human, and coming from a higher frequency of love and joy and gratitude. And yeah, we are still all living our lives with all of these emotions. Get rid of the regret, get rid of the shame, get rid of the guilt, feel it, move it through, so we can get on with the business of wrapping each other up in this beautiful bubble of love
Yeah.
and
And
support.
if you do have, relationships that there hasn't been a closure to something, or there's been a kind of, there's still like an open wound, if you will, in the relationship, then, part of that healing process is to go, not always, but you got to kind of tune in to see if it's the right thing to do, to go back and reconnect to that person and just share how you feel. And if it's
Yeah.
repairable, then you'll be so glad that you did. And if it's not, then at least you did what you could do. Right.
Yep. You
One
got
of the
courageous and you tried.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that, I kind of picked up on this subject for today, I wasn't planning on it. We weren't planning on it, but um, we were on a podcast last week with um, Eden and Mike, right? And on their Mind Your Own Business podcast, and he has his own podcast, or sorry, radio show. Keep saying podcast, radio show, and that is the Edge of Understanding radio show. And I just, took a look at it after we were on their other show with Eden, and he was talking about regret and kind of his own process. Again, another
Man,
man being
yes.
vulnerable, and he was emotional, and he was talking about how he reconnected with somebody, and that he's been living with this for 15 years. And he really
Ooh,
kind of, like, that was again eye opening for him to kind of really put the timeline on it, and that he was able to, reconnect and get also the other person's point of view as well. Sometimes we're living with regret and it wasn't as bad as, we thought it was from the
yeah.
other person's perspective. It's like, I mean, y- some people, why are you carrying that around? I'm, I thought it was fine, whatever. I mean, they might have a completely different perspective, which could be healing in yourself. Oh, I wasn't that bad. Awesome. I've been having this horrible show going on in my mind, and it wasn't as bad as I was making it out to be, or getting worse and worse the more the years go by. So that's why, in honor of Mike, which we're going to be, uh, um, you know, get again on their show on Thursday. But again, I commend him for really being vulnerable and putting it out there and how he's been feeling. And from what I understand, he's been doing some pretty deep work, I think, especially over the last year, and really growing, and to also recognize whatever his experiences were, just like whatever, your experiences are out there, who's listening, is that these are opportunities for your own personal growth. These are opportunities for you, not to keep you weighed down, but stepping stones to move forward. And I think that's so important. And I think this is maybe a good place to kind of close up. And I want to at least end this part with a quote by Sonia Riccati, which is surrender to what is, let go of what was, and have faith in what will be.
I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So we wish y'all nothing but the most beautiful 2024. We are so grateful to have you guys with us on this journey and to be building this community. Thank you for your comments, your likes, your shares. We really, really value your feedback, and Happy New Year.
Yeah. And take that calculated risk and put in a comment.
Yeah, do it.
Right?
You know what,
Put in
you
a
you
little
want to know
comment.
something so funny? I can't tell you. So um, I've sent two people accidentally, like I was meaning to send the podcast to somebody different with this. I've got too many phone numbers and my phone's all funky right now. But it's so like, yes, we want to hear from you. Now we
Mhm.
know you're watching.
Mhm.
Now we want to hear. It's pretty fun. So
Yeah.
anyway, thank you, Lisa.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Happy New Year.